Hello Internet, and welcome once again to my reviews of the Indiana Jones movies leading up to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Today we are here to talk about my personal favorite entry in the series, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was released on May 24th, 1989, and it follows Dr. Jones on a quest for the Holy Grail. Okay, get your Monty Python jokes out of the way. Joining him on his adventure is his own father, Henry Jones, played by the legendary Sean Connery. This was actually the very first movie I saw that starred Sean Connery, and at the time I had no idea that Sean Connery played James Bond back in the 1960s. Plus, Sean Connery was my main inspiration for Sonic the Hedgehog's twin brother, Sonic. It was because of this movie and the James Bond movies that I was able to learn and perfect a spot-on impression of Sean Connery. But with Sonic, I wanted to make him sound a lot younger, so you could clearly tell the difference between my Sonic voice and my impression of the actual Sean Connery. Returning from Raiders of the Lost Ark is not only Sala, played by John Rhys Davies, but also Marcus Brody, played by Denholm Elliott. Marcus is a colleague of Indy at the university he teaches at. Steven Spielberg initially wanted him back for the role to recapture the spirit of Raiders of the Lost Ark, unlike his predecessor, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which was dark as shit. I went into full detail on how far they went with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. After the mixed reaction of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom at the box office, Steven Spielberg chose to lower the dark tone and graphic violence in the next installment, and the result was one of my favorite movies in the entire 80s decade. This is the first installment in the Indiana Jones series to be given a PG-13 rating, and after watching this 1,000 times, I feel it's earned that PG-13 rating. The opening scene takes place in 1912, as we see a young Indiana Jones played by River Phoenix. River Phoenix is actually the older brother of Joaquin Phoenix, but tragically, on October 31st, 1993, River Phoenix died from a combined drug intoxication. He was 23 when he died. It's truly awful what happened to River Phoenix for one to die so young. While on a scouting expedition in Utah, he sees a bunch of bandits digging up the Cross of Coronado, so he sneaks down there and steals the cross, and thus the bandits chase him. He wants to donate the cross to a museum, just as long as Blathers from Animal Crossing doesn't have existing artifacts in the museum already. So he calls for his horse and the bandits chase him onto an oncoming circus train. This is where we see how Indiana Jones got his signature style and mannerisms. For example, there's a pit of snakes that he falls into, and that's how he got his phobia of snakes. And another car with a lion and a bullwhip. And fun fact, when River Phoenix was using the whip on the lion, he gave himself a scar on his chin. That's to incorporate Harrison Ford's real-life scar into the movie. So he escapes from the bandits and finds his father, who tells him to count to 20 in Greek. And that's when the sheriff comes in and demands he return the cross to the bandits. And the head bandit gives him his fedora hat as a sign of respect. You lost today, kid. But that doesn't mean you have to like it. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that this movie is very quotable, and I often use Last Crusade quotes in my everyday life. One such example is the quote the bandit says before giving Indy the hat, or, I suddenly remembered my Charlemagne, that my armies be the rocks and the trees, and the birds in the sky, or, this is a castle, and we have many tapestries, but if you are the Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse! How dare he? Or, are you crazy? Don't go between them! Go between them, are you crazy? I said go around! You said go between them! I said don't go between them! Or, my soul is prepared! How's yours? Or the ever-famous, I should have mailed it to the Marx Brothers. Will you take it easy? Take it easy? Why do you think I sent it home in the first place? So it wouldn't fall into their hands! I came here to save you! Oh yeah? And who's gonna come to save you? Junior? I told you! Don't call me Junior. And several others. And that's another thing. Sean Connery always calls him Junior because his real name is Henry Jones Jr. And he got the name Indiana because they named the dog Indiana. As you can tell, this movie is chock full of comedic moments and lighthearted humor. The perfect blend of humor and action. That's why I consider Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as one of my favorite movies of all time. I can say the same thing about Captain America the Winter Soldier and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So Dr. Jones manages to get the cross back as we cut to 1938. We then see that Henry Jones is after the Holy Grail, and he has been keeping a diary for years. And then we see Walter Donovan, played by Julian Glover, who's previously starred in The Empire Strikes Back and For Your Eyes Only. But Julian Glover is not the only Roger Moore-era James Bond actor to appear in this film. We have Dr. Elsa Schneider. Go on and get your Frozen jokes out of the way with the name Elsa. Dr. Elsa Schneider is played by Alison Doody, who previously starred in A View to a Kill. Henry's Grail diary is mailed to Indy's college to keep it out of the Nazis' hands. Yes, people, the Nazis have returned yet again to fuck up Indiana Jones' world. But Henry vanished while trying to look for the Grail. Donovan points Indy and Marcus to a clue for the Grail's whereabouts in Venice, Italy. And there they meet Dr. Elsa Schneider, who is secretly a Nazi herself. Their findings take them to a library where there is a hidden catacomb underneath. a catacomb infested with rats, petroleum, and an Easter egg showing off the Ark of the Covenant. But that catacomb is where they find the remains of a knight of the First Crusade that pinpoints the exact location of the Holy Grail. But then they are ambushed by the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, whose sworn oath is to protect the Holy Grail whatever it takes. And we get a pretty exciting boat chase, where the leader of the Brotherhood named Kazim reveals to Indy where his father is. He is at Castle Brunwald in Austria, a castle with many tapestries. And if you are a Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse! But before Indy finds his father, he and Marcus find a map to the ancient city of Alexandretta, where the path to the Grail starts. Marcus keeps the map while Indy sends him to Iskendera to meet up with Sala. Once Indy and Elsa make it to the castle, Indy sets out alone until he finds his father. Soon after, it's revealed that Elsa is a Nazi herself, along with Donovan. Long before Disney had their twist villain fetishes starting with Hans from Frozen, we get the biggest villain twist in the history of villain twists. Well, not exactly. Number 1 goes to Darth Vader revealing himself to be Luke's father in The Empire Strikes Back. Second place goes to Norman Bates revealing himself to be the killer all along in Psycho. So the Joneses are tied up while Donovan steals the Grail Diary and the Nazis search for the Grail themselves. But they manage to escape while trying unsuccessfully to burn the ropes, as they end up setting the entire room on fire. They find a turntable where we see one of the laugh-out-loud funniest scenes in the movie.
6, 1, 3, ja? Jetzt.
That scene gets me every time. So they finally get free from the ropes, but they come across a dead end. Henry finds that if he just sits down and thinks, a solution presents itself. All while Indy just falls down a set of stairs. So they have 2 options to escape: take the boats or steal a motorcycle. So they went with stealing a motorcycle and a sidecar. They outrun the Nazis, but they reach a crossroads. Indy wants to rendezvous with Marcus and Sala, while Henry wants his diary back, and they go to Berlin where the Nazis are burning books. One of the main themes of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a son's relationship with his estranged father. Plus, there's several uses of religious imagery all throughout this movie, and I feel Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade captured it flawlessly. Especially when you pair Harrison Ford with Sean Connery. But years later, we saw that Sean Connery was not the only James Bond who Harrison Ford teamed up with. He actually teamed up with Daniel Craig in a ridiculous movie that I like to call Cowboys and Aliens. After Henry gives Indy a lecture about how important the diary is to him, as well as the Grail, and the challenges that await them, they head into Berlin, into the Lion's Den. And here we get a really catchy marching tune that still plays in my head to this day. Here, Indy corners Elsa and takes the diary back from her. And as they leave, Adolf Hitler comes in and grabs the book. You would think he would toss it into the fire, but nope, he just signs the book and gives it to Indy. So Indy and Henry then board a Zeppelin to get the fuck out of Germany. When one of the film's side antagonists, Colonel Vogel, corners the Joneses, Indy tosses him out the window because he had no ticket. And this was after Indy disguised himself as a Zeppelin worker punching tickets. At the ensuing scene where Henry and Indy are bonding, no pun intended with Sean Connery, has a fun fact to it. When they were filming that scene with the 2 of them sitting at the table, Harrison Ford and Sean Connery didn't even have pants on. It was a very hot day on set, and the extras were all wearing fur coats, and Sean Connery was sweating like crazy, and frankly, so was Harrison Ford. But Indy notices that something fishy was going on when the Zeppelin heads back to Germany, which is where they don't want to be. So they find a biplane that I wish was the Tornado from the Sonic the Hedgehog series. And we get a funny scene where Henry finds the machine gun and accidentally shoots the back of the plane. Dad, you're gonna have to use the machine gun! Get it ready! 11 o'clock! Dad, 11 o'clock! What happened at 11 o'clock? 12, 11, 10, 11 o'clock, fire! Dad, are we hit? More or less? Son, I'm sorry. They got us. Like I said, I've memorized a ton of Last Crusade quotes word for word. Another great example is, "Those people are trying to kill us." I know, Dad! This is a new experience for me. It happens to me all the time. So not only have I memorized quotes from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, The Incredibles, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and both Sonic the Hedgehog movies, but also Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Can't you tell that I love this movie to death? So the Joneses are chased by German planes in a scene that was clearly inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, where the crop duster is chasing down Cary Grant. And then another laugh-out-loud funny moment with Sean Connery as he takes out an umbrella and makes bird noises as he makes the seagulls on the beach attack the enemy aircraft. Jeez Louise! 2 Alfred Hitchcock homages in the same movie. Not only with North by Northwest, but also the birds. I suddenly remembered my Charlemagne. Let my armies be the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky. The Joneses then meet up with Sala, who informs them that Marcus has been captured by the Nazis, and they are keeping him prisoner inside a tank. So the Nazis have the map, and they have an entire convoy of tanks, horses, camels, and military vehicles ready to storm the temple where the Grail lies. And we find out that Salah's favorite animals are in fact camels. And then Kazim and the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword ambush the Nazis, in one of the most intense climactic battles ever to be put on screen. Henry is then captured by a bunch of goose-stepping morons like yourself, who should try reading books instead of burning them. So Indy and Salah set up a rescue mission to get his father and Marcus back before they continue searching for the Grail. One epic fight scene later, Indy seemingly falls to his death along with the tank, but nope, Indy survives and they make it to the canyon of the Crescent Moon where the Holy Grail lies. But half of them can't even get past the first set of booby traps without Henry's notes in the Grail diary, so then the unthinkable happens. Donovan mortally wounds Henry, and Indy gets so pissed off at him, but he finally gives in and leads them to the Grail and to bypass the booby traps. From spinning saw blades, to spelling the name of God Jehovah with an I instead of a J because it's in Latin, and a leap of faith across a chasm of doom. Indy then makes it into a room guarded by a knight who has lived for 700 years thanks to the power of the Grail. The room is filled with a bunch of false Grails, and only one Grail is the real one. If you choose poorly, you wither away and die. And if you choose wisely, you are granted eternal life, but it comes at a cost. Too bad none of the false Grails are named Cuphead or Mugman. Also tricks Donovan into drinking from the wrong Grail, in a really disturbing scene where he ages rapidly and he dies. But it's nowhere near as disturbing as the face-melting scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. So Indy deduces that the real Grail is not made of gold, but actually from clay. So he drinks from the clay Grail, and thus he has chosen wisely. But he cannot take the Grail beyond the Great Seal. He heals his father's wounds with the real Grail, and Elsa just takes the Grail for herself. Then the temple begins to crumble. Indy tries to get her to grab his hand, but she would rather have the Grail, so then she falls to her death. Indy almost falls to his death, until Henry advises him to let it go. So the Grail is lost, and then our heroes ride off into the sunset. I'm giving Indiana Jones of the Last Crusade a 10 out of 10. So many memorable quotes, exciting action, lighthearted humor, and a great improvement over Temple of Doom. This movie is absolutely flawless, from its themes of a son and his estranged father rekindling their bond. Again, no pun intended on Sean Connery as James Bond. Sean Connery is easily my favorite thing about this movie, and he's one of my favorite actors, period. And I was devastated upon learning about his death on October 31st, 2020. This movie still holds up extremely well today, as do Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones of the Temple of Doom. Stay tuned for my upcoming review of Indiana Jones of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull coming soon, as well as all other projects coming soon. Until then, I'll see you all next time.